For those of you that can, come on down and join us. We're going to have a panel discussion, but also more of a group discussion as well. So lots of chairs down here, less splinters on the chairs than on the railroad ties. So come on down and join us. It's also getting shady down here, so if you're really warm, you can get in the shade. So really thrilled to be here. What we're going to do with this panel is we're going to each really briefly introduce ourselves. I'm going to ask the panel to share some perspective on the challenges and obstacles and questions they had as they looked at becoming a B Corp and how they addressed that. So we can share some of those ideas and advice. And then we're going to talk a bit about what the benefits of being a B Corp have been and how that has helped our businesses. And then we're going to turn it to you to pick a partner near you and do some discussion about if you are a B Corp, what you learned in terms of going through the process. If you're thinking about becoming a B Corp, what are some of the things that you've been finding you need some help to get all the way to the finish line and get certified. And then we'll come back and do some popcorn from your discussion and get the panel to respond. So that's our game plan, and we're going to do all of this relatively quickly so that within the hour we'll all be mingling and enjoying more fantastic wine. So that's our plan for the afternoon. First off, let's give a warm applause for our incredible hosts here at A to Z Wineworks and Taste Bud Farms for great food. And Stephanie asked this a bit earlier, but before we get started, could everybody who is a certified B Corp raise your hand? Keep them up. All right. So if you're saying, hey, I'm interested in becoming a B Corp and I'm not sure how to do it, or I'm getting a challenge, there's some great expertise up here, but there's also a lot of expertise that you just saw raise their hands that can help out and talk about their experiences. So really quick, let's do some introductions from the panel. I'm Eric Friedenwald-Fishman. I'm the Creative Director at Metropolitan Group. We are a certified B Corp. We've been recertified a couple of times. We are also a benefit company here in Oregon, which are two different things that I'll talk about in a minute. And I'm really thrilled to be here with these great colleagues.
I'm Karen Whitman. I'm a founder of Capital Pacific Bank, and currently I am the chair of both the holding company and the bank.
Good evening, I'm Franklin Jones. I'm the CEO and founder of Beeline Sustainable Urban Delivery. We are a certified B Corporation and an Oregon benefit company, and we've been rolling for 5 years.
There we go.
Good evening, I'm Amy Prosenjack from A to Z Wineworks. I love being on panels. It's my favorite thing to do. Welcome, and we are a new B Corp. We just certified. We were the only winery in the world to be certified B Corp, and we are inviting lots of our colleagues tonight to join us in this great movement. So.
All right.
Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Colley. I'm the CEO for New Seasons Market. We're the first grocer in the world to be a B Corp certified grocery, which we're very proud of. And we acquired New Leaf Community Markets last year out of Santa Cruz, California, who was the second grocer to be B Corp certified. So we're very proud of that. And we are going through our second certification starting in January.
So, great theme we're seeing here, which is we're gathered here in Oregon, and the first winery in the world to be B Corp certified and the first grocer in the world to be B Corp certified are both here. We also know that in Oregon, we have the second highest density of certified B Corps of any state in the country. And hopefully with some of your help today and in the weeks and months that follow, we will become what we should be, which is the epicenter for businesses that are leading the world in terms of social and environmental responsibility. So really quickly, because we get a lot of these questions, I'm going to get a couple things out of the way. People say, well, some of you are B Corps and some of you are Oregon benefit companies, and what is the difference between the two? So basically, B Corp certification is that there's an international set of standards that have been established to say these are the standards for the absolute top highest level of social and environmental responsibility for business. The assessment looks at 4 areas. It looks at governance, it looks at workplace, it looks at community, and it looks at environment. And it sets up a set of standards that ask the same questions of companies all over the world. Well over 17,000 companies have taken the assessment. Over 1,000 have gone all the way through to become B Corp certified. The assessment adjusts every couple of years, and from a standpoint of continuous improvement, as the international community learns what it takes to be more socially responsible and environmentally responsible, they modify and adjust that assessment tool so it becomes a better and better tool. And all of us who are certified companies, as a way of walking that talk, have to get recertified every 2 years at that more robust set of standards, as a way of making sure we're all continuously improving. So that's certification, independent certification administered by the nonprofit B Lab worldwide. Companies all over the world are doing it, and it basically is an external marker that says this company is walking its talk, taking it seriously, and it can be looked at as a company that cares a lot about environmental and social responsibility. Benefit company status is actually the corporate status that a company registers with the state. And one of the things that the folks at B Lab realized is, hey, the first step on changing the world with business as a force for good was we have to be able to say, what does it mean to be socially responsible, and to have a set of standards so that those of us who are in the community and say we want our businesses to be responsible actually have something we can measure against, and have something that we can look to and say, I'm not just telling you I'm responsible, I'm holding myself accountable to another set of standards. The second thing that they identified is that we have some core underlying structural challenges with corporate law, that a lot of corporate law, case law, says that there's a liability for directors if you are not making decisions based upon maximizing return to shareholders. And that has become a barrier for a number of companies to be able to make choices that otherwise would be very responsible choices. And for some companies that are closely held, etc., that's not a need. For other companies, it is a need. And so B Lab has worked across the country, and now numerous states, over 25, have passed laws that establish a new corporate form where a company is established as a benefit company, and that company in its charter says that the directors shall consider the needs of diverse stakeholders, not just shareholders. Those shareholders are, of course, one of those very important groups of stakeholders. In Oregon, we did it a little bit differently. We did not create benefit corporate standards. We created Oregon's benefit company law, and what that did is we said, hey, lots of companies in Oregon are LLCs, others are S Corps, others are C Corps. They have different reasons for those corporate forms, so let's not create a completely new corporate form. Let's create an overlay that provides those same legal protections, is still registered through the Secretary of State's office. That's how you establish your business. But like my firm is an LLC, we chose to also become an Oregon benefit company. We're still an LLC, but we have that language in our corporate filing with the state. So those are the two different things. Tonight's discussion is really about certification. It's about becoming an independently certified B Corp, meeting that set of high standards, and using that assessment tool as a terrific business tool to be able to make decisions in your own business. If you have questions about the state benefit company status, there's a bunch of us here that have gone through that process as well, and afterwards we're glad to grab you and chat about that. So that's just to get that out of the way. Those are the two areas. So to kick us off, when you go through this assessment, one of the things that Stephanie experiences a lot is she'll be talking with a company that says, I really want to do it, and we got started on the assessment and I hit a roadblock when I was trying to explain this to my board, or my CFO had a big question about it, or some of our investors weren't sure about it, or any number of questions, or I got into the assessment and this set of questions didn't seem to make sense for my business and my industry. And we always find those are the kinds of questions that come up. So we wanted to start with our panel in terms of what were some of the challenges that people experienced as they went out to say, I want to become a benefit company. I think this makes sense. And there's some things that I have to overcome and solve for to get there. And I was hoping Karen could kick us off because she had a pretty interesting experience. And one of the most frequent questions we hear is about engaging the board, and she's done a great job with that. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, I've done a great job just because we were successful. That was the only good job I did. I love telling this story, though, because the whole B Corp started with our staff, who for about 2 years were diligent, dogged, and very visible within the bank to try to move the agenda in sustainability. I can tell you that the board was very interested, but not terribly active in the movement. So we were aware, and mostly we were supportive because we felt that the direction they were headed was very much aligned with the core principles of the founding principles of the bank. And there were a number of us who are community-based people and know that doing well and doing good in Portland and Oregon really works. So management and the staff proposed that we would get to the next level, and the next level was to invite B Lab in to make a presentation to the board. And teeing that up was of particular importance because not everyone was interested, and we could read some literature was a suggestion. And so that was the first challenge, to get people very much interested in the subject. Don't turn it off before you know what it is. The meeting, after they closed the door and left the room, you can imagine the conversation. It did stimulate a very broad conversation. Lots of questions, some cynicism, and importantly, I thought before any lines got drawn in the sand that we would hand it over to the Strategic Planning Committee, a committee that has well served a lot of sticky issues that we've been dealing with. Then, of course, the real work began, and we did a lot of research, both internal and external. We talked to virtually every constituent group that we could find, all for the case of organizing a business case for becoming a B Corp. The big challenge for us is about 3 little words that had to be focused on as we were changing the bylaws. So let me make a note for those of you who don't know. The holding company owns the bank. The holding company, therefore, has the authority to agree to any bylaws word change. And while the majority of the board, as I referred to, is community-based, there are 2 institutional investors on the board. So you know, most of you know what that means. And make a note, we are, as Eric has referred to, accountable to our shareholders, and all the directors are in the business of making a profit. There's nothing with a B Corp that doesn't agree to those standards. But that was let's just say, a point of the conversation. Making the business case range from client and employee retention and recruitment. And we liked the idea that it would be a differentiator. We liked the fact that in February, when we became a B Corp, we were only one of 5 banks in the nation, again, showing Oregon leadership. So here is the bottom line. Fiddling around with any bylaws wording change is a very difficult. It seems like 3 little words wouldn't make that much difference, but it was a tough battle. I won't go into the details of that, but bringing intentional strength to the triple bottom line definition is really what we were attempting to do. I asked for a unanimous vote after this 6 months of going through the entire process, and I got unanimous vote. Then we shut that meeting down. We went to the bank meeting, and the bank meeting approved unanimously the motion to move forward with the application to become a B Corp. All of that in a day, just any old day in February. So you might ask, this is the conclusion, you might ask, how did we celebrate? We threw open the boardroom door. We went out and we talked to all the staff that was sitting out there waiting for the verdict. And we told them that we had 2 unanimous votes, and there were lots of smiles and some tears from all board members and all staff. But it really started with them, and this is a whole new chapter for Capital Pacific Bank.
So another challenge that we hear sometimes is the question of, do I need this? I've already, my building is LEED certified, I've got X, I've got Y. do I need this? And when I was talking with Amy, I know that was one of the things that came up here at A to Z was, is this something that we even need? So you want to talk a little bit about how you assess that?
Sure. At A to Z, we felt like when we read about B Corp, and one of our founders, Sam Tannehill, who's here tonight, was very instrumental in us pursuing the B Corp certification. And when we read about it as a group, it seemed like we were doing a lot of what B Corp required. So we thought this will be pretty easy. And when we got into the assessment, we started to see that we hadn't really documented everything. We had not made it very clear to all our employees of what some of these standards and policies were that we thought as management we were practicing. So B Corp was helpful to us as we updated our handbook. We put things in writing that we believed in, that we were already practicing, and just really increased our standards as a company. And we were able to parlay that certification into some marketing good news with some PR releases, and the Wine Spectator, which is pretty important to wineries, wrote up a nice article with a picture of the founders. So we felt that we were really able to use that both for improving our company standards as well as a marketing benefit to our company. So it's paid off in just a few months.
So we're going to move into, we've been talking about some of the challenges. A couple other challenges that we hear come up from time to time is folks say, I'm working on the assessment and we're stuck here because the way this question is framed, it doesn't feel like we've got an easy yes/no answer, an easy pick one answer. And that was my company's experience with this. Is we definitely had met the certification standards, and one of the things I think we'll hear a lot, New Seasons has talked about this, is it's not that companies say, oh, I'm going to go become a B Corp. I've been doing lots of horrible things to the environment and treating my employees horribly, but because it's in the assessment, I'm going to now start being good. For the most part, it's codifying a lot of what companies are already doing, and places where companies make choices to say, hey, we should do a better job of documenting, or wow, that's a best practice, and we're not doing exactly that. Let's think about, is that right for our business? But we were looking at some of these questions and said, these questions create a dichotomy. It's you either pick that you do direct impact here or you do supportive impact. And we have two different divisions of our company that both work on this. And one of them does direct work, and the other does supportive work. And we have to pick one. And so we're going to pick one half of what our company does. And so the thing that I would encourage, and I've heard this from lots of B Corps, is you pick up the phone and you call B Lab and you say, hey, I'm on this question and here's where I'm having some struggle, some challenge. And sometimes if it's you're not quite understanding the question and they explain it, it's easy. But in our instance, it was the way this question's framed doesn't work for our industry. And they said, this is great feedback because we're coming up on the next round of the assessment and we'll take that feedback into consideration. And then, time goes by and it comes time for us to get recertified and we come to that section and the question is different and the question makes sense for us. And there's an option where you can put in what portion of your revenues are in each of those categories. And it was like, wow, we were listened to and this improved. So the moral of that story is the challenge that a lot of people express is sometimes they get stuck on a question in the assessment. There's help available. You can call another B Corp and say, hey, how did you do this? But you can also call B Lab, and my own CFO will say it was amazing. He picked up the phone, called, and instantly got the help that was needed. So that's one of the other challenges. Last challenge that we heard before, and we'll of course have time later for questions of challenges, is a lot of people say, well, I've heard it's super expensive and it's very mystic and I'm not sure how much it's going to cost and it sounds like a great idea, but I don't know if we can afford it. And it actually isn't a mystery. They publish what it costs. There is a fee. The fee helps pay for the auditing that happens to make sure that it's not just that you filled it out, but a random assortment of the firms get audited, etc. And if your firm does less than $1 million of revenue a year, it's $500 a year. If your firm's doing up to $5 million, it's $1,000, and so on and so forth. So there's a sliding scale. If you got a specific dollar level that you want to ask about afterwards, you can ask Stephanie, you can ask Ben, you can ask me. Happy to share it. It's on the website as well. But what I've heard from most companies that have gone through the certification process is that the benefit they get out of it far outweighs the cost, which is a great place for us to segue to talking about some of the benefits, since we've been talking about challenges. And Wendy, I'm wondering if you'd kick us off talking about, you guys went through this, you did the hard work. What's been the result?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. So I think actually we've had a lot of really positive results since we've become B Corp certified, and very similar to what Amy was just talking about, a lot of what we do in terms of Triple Bottom Line Company existed in New Seasons Market before we were certified, but it allowed us to codify our mission and values in a way that we could start to measure really what we thought we were doing, but in a way now that was much more meaningful, both for the management team as well as our staff, to make sure that we were really living up to our own expectations. I think there was a couple of key things that for me really struck me as probably a bigger benefit than I realized. And one of them was the brand enhancement. And New Seasons has, a great brand that stands for community and stands for great food and wonderful interactions in our stores. But what B Corp certification has done is also put us into good company with a lot of other companies that are like-minded. And we're learning from them and they're learning from us. And what it's doing is enhancing the overall sort of brand proposition, if you will, of how we want to operate and how we want to grow in a meaningful way. And tied directly to that is our staff, our employees. One of the things that I think is the hardest for triple bottom line companies is how do you stay true to your values as you grow, and being able to point to our B Corp certification with our employees where they know that no matter where we're operating, who owns us, this is who we are. New Seasons is here to stay. And the way that we run our business, the way we interact with our environment, sustainability, our customers, our community, our workers is really important to the framework and the DNA of what we stand for. And we took a lot of time to teach our staff what B Corp meant because it really struck, I think, a chord in the hearts of our staff. And, what I love is today when you go into the stores and you talk to, anyone that works from us from 15 years ago to being hired yesterday, and you ask them, do you know what B Corp stand for? And they attach to that. There's an emotional attachment to what that means, which means there's lower turnover, there's higher emotional engagement, right? There's better workforce engagement. So there's a lot of untangible benefits as well as tangible benefits when it comes to staff. I think the other couple of areas I would call out that were benefits for us was we, very similar to the winery, had a lot of really good information, but we really didn't have a great set of data or processes to help us measure. So we've been able to create a 3-year sustainability plan using some of the information that we went through for the B Corp assessment as our guidelines and as our baseline. And we now have a way to measure not only what we want to work on, but how well we're doing. And that's really significant for the organization. We also are working with a cloud-based company called I'm going to forget. I got to look now. Scope 5. I almost said Cloud 5. Too much wine already. Scope 5. And part of what they'll be doing is helping us to put our mission scorecard online so that we have full transparency to our customers, to our staff, to our community, to our board, to our vendors. We want to be able to give people access to what we do and what we stand for and have them understand why it's important that we like to work all the way up this supply chain stream to try to make a difference on the environment. And we like to work, all the way into the communities to make sure that they know we care and that we want to give back to what they're doing. So we're very excited about that. And then the last big benefit is really on the business side, on the retail side. We've run 2 different campaigns called Be the Change. We have over 1,100 different items in our stores, over 42 brands that are B Corp certified. So we've been able to put together promotions inside of our stores that help our customers understand who the companies are that we keep good company with, and that they have the same values as we do. And if that's important for them when they're choosing the products they want to buy, we want to be able to provide that education to the customer so that they have the opportunity to try it. We're in the middle of one of our campaigns right now. We did a back to the school Be the Change campaign, and this morning I was told sales in those categories are at 95%. So there's a tangible business proposition here as well, folks, that sometimes, it's hard to see it, but it's really meaningful in very many ways. So it's been a great benefit to us.
Franklin, I know that you've had some experience with benefits as well. Why don't you share your story?
Sure. it's a huge community that ultimately is working together and kind of creating more livable communities, whether it's in Portland or Salem or in Los Angeles or back in Philadelphia. And that's one of the largest benefits that I've seen, is that a little small company like Beeline has been able to reach out to a much broader world. I was invited to speak in New York about transportation issues, and then again in the Sultan of Oman. And when I was there talking about, what bicycles can do in the desert, I was also talking about what B Corps do. And so a lot of that has been kind of the overarching benefit of joining a community like B Corps and B Labs. More directly, though, 20% of my current client base are B Corps. In fact, we advertise with New Seasons, and we've helped the Be the Change campaign. And the Be the Change campaign from Capital Pacific Bank has rolled on the sides of our trikes. We've worked with companies like Guayaquil Yerba Mate for 5 years to help them launch products into the urban core, and they were one of the founding B Corps. And so this connection between like-minded businesses and the company we keep, literally, has been not only just an intangible sense of growth, but it's also very tangible growth on our bottom line.
So, Amy and Karen, since you shared your challenge stories, you had teed up a little bit of a benefit story, but wanted to give you each a chance to talk about, now that you're past the certification and made the choice, what are some of the benefits you're getting? So, Amy, go ahead and then Karen.
I think some of the additional benefits, in addition to what I mentioned earlier, were definitely for our employees and the engagement that they're feeling about it. We've been trying to do the same with education and making sure people know about it. We're trying to connect through all the different, the B Corp, B Lab website is pretty amazing with all the connections that are there and all the benefits that you get for different companies. We offer a discount on wine if you come to buy wine if you're a B Corp, so we have a way to look that up in our tasting room. And I think that's important to try to leverage that between all the different companies. Deb Hatcher and I are going to the B Corp retreat in Vermont, so we'll hopefully see some of you there. We're going to see how that all happens. So I think it's continuing education for ourselves and our employees. It's a big benefit for us. It makes you focus on it in a way that maybe you didn't before.
I think for Capital Pacific, I think the application process itself helped us sort of focus on our brand. I think we saw ourselves as very brand sensitive, but once we started this process, I think we were able to see and express more of the qualities of our brand than we ever had before. And I think that it's doing well and doing good is working with like-minded companies. There have been a lot of groundwork that we've done in the building where we're located, the Fox Tower, to make sure that not just Capital Pacific, a tenant there, has an idea of what a B Corp can do, but the rest of the tenants there. So the circle of influence, I think, continues to go, and the circle gets wider and wider. I do think that there's a sort of an emotional attachment, riding the wave, which in Oregon, it's sort of the easy and right thing to do. And I would say that we've been riding the media interest wave, and my CEO was quoted recently as saying, when asked the question, why the B Corp? And he said, I'm in Oregon, I'm not dumb. So, yeah, right. But I think everything is worthwhile when your employees are happy. And when I see the bottom line business growth, I look at the people that made the business growth happen. And I think that the decision that we made was a very smart, intelligent one that demonstrates itself in the smiles we see around there, the enthusiasm we see every day, the bottom line that continues to grow. But here's the big tip-off. I overheard at the last board meeting 2 directors talking, and they were speaking pridefully about being a B Corp.
So lots of benefits that we're hearing. A couple of others you've probably picked up on it in a number of the comments, but as a data wonk, one of the benefits that we've really seen is the access to all the data in the assessment. You can look at what are other companies doing. You can look at what is the overall aggregate, how does it compare to the folks that are certified and aren't certified. And we've found that the assessment's not a lockstep set of, you have to do all these things. It's a set of options and practices where you can look at what are peers doing, and you can use that as a planning tool. So, I'm sure many of the companies here have a sustainability committee or a sustainability department. Our sustainability team now uses the B assessment as a part of the assessment that they do in terms of how our company is doing on our commitments, as opposed to just comparing ourselves to what we did last year. We're able to compare ourselves to what others are doing. So it's really a great data tool. And the last thing is, you've probably picked up on it a little bit, but this movement, this B Lab that is being supported by B Lab, right now we are in the nascent stages. There's 1,000 companies that are certified B Corps, and while that's amazing, it's taken a lot of work to get there, it's a drop in the bucket. But it's getting undue levels of attention because it is so powerful. And B Lab and the B community, we all are helping each other get that profile and that attention. So you get calls from other B Corps saying, hey, I was talking to a reporter, they wanted to talk to somebody in the marketing industry, could you talk to them? We got this email from B Lab saying, hey, by the way, congrats, you're one of the 92 companies that are best for the world. And we're like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. The next thing we know, we're in Inc. magazine, and we're like, wow, that's pretty cool. And we didn't have to pitch it. So there's a lot of support that comes from the community just by being a part of this early stages of the movement. So what we'd like to do now is ask each of you to turn to one of your neighbors, and if you're in the process of going through certification, you're saying, hey, here's some of the things that I'm finding to be challenges that I'd love an answer to, talk about it. And your neighbor might be able to give you the answer, or they'll help you really articulate that great question to come back to the panel. Or if you're saying, hey, we've just become a B Corp and we're finding some great benefits and we want to figure out ways to better engage our employees or to better engage our customers, or we're trying to figure out how to extend this benefit, or I want my suppliers to look at becoming B Corps. Have you tried getting your fellow business colleagues to do so? So we're going to take just about 5 or 6 minutes, ask each to spend, give each of you three-ish minutes to talk to the other one and talk about what's on your mind. What's this panel bringing up for you? And then we'll come back for some popcorn. And it can be questions to the panel, or it can be, hey, here's an observation we have and wisdom from the fabulous folks that it all could be on the panel. Okay, so we're going to gather back together because we want to keep our promise of there being time to mingle and drink more good wine. So if folks could wrap the conversations and rejoin our conversation, we'd love to hear some of the ideas that came up. Who wants to share either a question or a comment or a great idea that came out of their conversation? Anybody want to share with us? Yes, please.
I heard a little bit of a story about Wendy engaging your employees before you announced. Can you talk about that?
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. So the question was, she had heard, what was your name?
Lisa.
Lisa had heard that we had done some work with how we engaged our staff before we announced our B Corp, and wanted to hear more about that. We actually, we took a lot of time with how we educated our staff across the organization. And while we had some folks in the company that understood B Corp, it was not language that was understood, in all of the 13 stores at the time. And the mission and the values were understood, but, understanding how you measure that, why you measure that, what does that mean? For me, what was important was people felt very engaged, that it meant we would stay who we are as we grow. And it wasn't just something that you put on a piece of paper. So what we did was we actually had Stephanie come to a company meeting that we did first, and we talked about B Corp and what it was and what we were doing, and we kicked it off with 500 of our department managers and above in a meeting setting so that they heard what that looked like and felt like. We did a video with one of the founders of B Lab where we went into one of our stores and we brought a cross-section of staff members from each of our stores into a meeting where we not only videotaped the conversation with why does B Corp matter? What does it really mean to a company? But we actually had on this video, I think it was 14 or 15 staff members that were learning about B Corp, that were people that were very passionate about sustainability in our company. They're part of our green teams. They were very active in keeping sort of the new season's heart and soul alive. And we basically trained the trainer at that point. So we taught them what it looked like. We got them really excited. And then we brought the store managers in. We walked them through it. And then we asked each store manager and their point person, this green team member, to sit and do small group meetings with our staff, about 20 people at a time. We have about 200, 250 people in our stores, each store. So I mean, you're a lot of folks you want to touch. But we felt like it was so important that we did these small group meetings where we showed the video of when we were together, talking about B-Lab with the team. We had examples of what it meant to us in terms of the company, our operating agreement, what it meant in terms of staff, governance, business, sustainability, community. And we really just took an opportunity to create an engaging dialogue. And then we announced it to the customers, because we really felt like what felt right to us was to announce that we were B Corp certified, so that when a customer asked, or a community member asked, or a vendor asked, it was in the heart and soul of our people. So it went really, really well. I'm thrilled that we took the time and energy to do it. And I think, you know, one of the recommendations that I would make to folks that are thinking about becoming certified is how you engage your teams. Is really, I think, a way to increase your engagement of their overall participation in the companies. And I think this is one of those opportunities to do that. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you talk about the staffing requirements that you encountered when you went through the certification and through the assessments, and any changes you needed to make, any documentation you needed to do for the beginning certification and then for the ongoing certification? And did you add staffing resources to maintain and manage this, or were you able to absorb it?
So the question is, what kind of staffing resources were required to actually do the certification and then to maintain your certification? Did we have to add staff members? Did we have to outsource it? So really quick, a couple of folks. Amy, go ahead.
Thanks, Allison. So one of our local wineries, just speaking from a winery perspective for a minute, since there's a few of you here, if you are a live certified winery or a live certified vineyards that come to your winery, it actually wasn't too bad, because you have a lot of that data already collected for the live certification, so which is low input viticulture and enology. So we were able to use a lot of that data for it. We did not add staff. I got to do that on my own time. It took about 3 days of hard work of really analyzing that. Had a lot of help from Charlotte, our director of HR, and they do question and audit some of your answers, so it takes some time to justify your answers that you put in there. You have to be able to document it. They ask for employee rosters, shareholder lists. I mean, lots of things that you probably have all over the place. But it probably a good 3 days to collect that data, but we were live certified already, so that helped.
Others, Franklin?
Yeah, initially, no. I just asked myself whether I had time to do it, and I said, no, I don't have time to do it, but we did it anyway. But as we went through, and Beeline's been through a certification, a random audit, and now we're getting ready to do our another certification. And both at the certification and at the audit time period, it was actually an invitation to bring the staff into the the whole world that is B Corp. Because as a day-to-day member of our community, you might be working on riding trucks around, you may be doing some promotions, you may be working in with numbers in the financial world, but you don't necessarily dive into all the different levels that the B Corp assessment is asking you to do. And so to ask key employees to come in and take a look at that, I think was actually an invitation to join the company in a deeper way, and also to show their engagement and how much they wanted to kind of continue to grow with the company.
The directors didn't have much to do with the process at all, but I can tell you that it's one of those old adages, ask a busy person, and the green team at Capital Pacific started with a small number of people and expanded, and they worked tirelessly to go through the process, and I think it was longer than a couple of days. I would say it was like at least a year going through and organizing all of the answers to all of the questions and accumulating data, continuing to look at questions to find out if they were answering the right question.
Another one, yes.
I just wanted to make a comment when I heard Franklin talk about the audit. I'm a B Corp and a CPA, so I know about audits. I think B Labs would probably prefer that it's called field exam or something, because it's not an audit. It's nothing to stress about. We just went through one. They came and visited us for 2-3 hours. It was very helpful. They do look at the numbers that you've given and the information you provided, but it's not. It's much more of an educational process, helping us learn and get better, and verifying that you are doing what you say. But I want to let people know it's not really an audit.
So we've heard from 2 people say, yeah, I got audited and it was a great experience. So go figure on that. But the audit piece is important both because it's educational and it's not scary, and it's also important to say this isn't just I can fill out a form and submit it, and hey, now I'm an online minister, I can marry you. It is something that there is actually a verification that takes place, so you can trust the certification. And really this came out of a lot of the folks that started B Corp, the whole B Lab movement, were folks that were involved in social venture network and business for social responsibility, etc. And we were talking with each other, and the constant conversation was, how do you know? How do you make sure that when you're saying that you're socially responsible or that you're environmentally responsible, that it's a standard that's not just you saying it, but it's something that can be verified? So it's great to hear that it's not a stressful experience. It's also great that they actually ask the questions and that there is that veracity there. I think we have time for one more. Yes.
Eric, I just wanted to point out for folks that are at smaller companies, we've got some really great companies, very big companies. You can be of any size. We have a 2-person company and we are certified B Corp. So I just want to let you know, if you're thinking about that, if there's any hesitation, it looks a little different because you're different, but it looks different for every company. So I just want to point that out, that any size can be part of this movement.
So great point for anyone who couldn't hear. It's it's scalable. You can be any size. And Franklin, what do you want to add something?
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I would actually encourage you to, if you're thinking about becoming a B Corp and you are small, start now. For lots of reasons. The biggest one being that you have an incredible roadmap for growth. And when you get to these questions of, fiduciary responsibilities or corporate responsibility or environmental choices, or how do you really kind of work with your stakeholders, there's a great roadmap and a wonderful community that you can reach out to.
Well, we want to make sure that there's plenty of time for mingling. I'm sure all of us are more than happy to engage with you in conversation. I first want to thank this incredible panel, Wendy, Amy, Franklin, and Karen. Very different companies, different industries, different sizes, all coming and sharing their feedback. So let's give them a big thanks. Want to really encourage those of you who are here thinking about becoming a B Corp. Talk to those of us that have done it. Franklin's absolutely right. Dive in, take the assessment. It's an incredible tool, whether you go all the way through certification or not, but join us. And the last thing that I want to add is remember that this is about business being an incredible force for good. It's about creating great jobs. It's about creating really strong, sustainable economies. It's about making sure that the communities we work in are healthy. And it's about making sure that our companies are really well run and really healthy companies. And that creates incredible benefit, not only for those of us that are in business, but for the communities that we work in, for the customers that we serve, and for the supply chain that we work with. So I encourage you, take the assessment, think about becoming certified, and let's help make business be not just those of us that are here, but all business become more of a force for good. So thank you.